Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this evening's guest moderator from Rolling Stone, Peter Travers, and tonight's guests, John Krasinski and Matt Damon.
So we're going to talk about shopping.
Fantastic.
You can
Yes.
do a lot to do. You guys actually wrote together.
We did, yeah.
How was that accomplished?
How do I answer that? No, I mean, I've written with actors before.
I heard that. What happened to that guy?
Nothing. He didn't amount to much. Actually, writing with John was almost exactly like writing with Ben Affleck. I think probably because we're all actors, we have the tendency to get up and, take on all the different characters and run around a room shouting and improvising, and eventually a script comes out of that.
Sounds like a good DVD extra.
It's really not.
Not really not. That was it. Since we only saw the trailer, we should start by saying who you play and who you play, and then we will have a foundation in which to take off into the wild blue of your own imaginations.
Okay, well, I play a what they call a landman, who's somebody who goes and locks up these leases for rights to drill on people's property. So my character Steve is basically, he's the traveling salesman who goes into the town and changes the town and is changed by the town.
That sounded very vague.
Well, yeah, I mean, you still got to see the movie.
You still, I know. Well, come on. You got to give them a little more than that.
Act 1, Scene 1.
Act 1, Scene 1. Yes. What is that? Because you can't. Well, you can sort of describe who you're playing.
Yeah, I play an environmentalist who when Matt's character comes to the town, I basically don't think what he's doing is a very good thing. So I speak out against it and get the whole town behind me.
So the it is fracking.
Yes.
Wow, this is like a quiz show now. We can do multiple choice. Yes.
What is fracking?
It is. What? And again, yes. To those, does everyone know what fracking is?
One person does.
One person does. So it's good. It's good to explain a little bit about what it is, because you want to go in there with your company and you want to start this hydraulic drilling.
Right, and yeah, but the character that I play is he grew up in a farming community and watched his town basically be hollowed out when the industry left. A factory in town closed down, and he saw what happened to his town, and so he's very much a believer. He's a realist. He's very much a believer in industry, and feels like he's really offering a lifeline to these communities that he goes into with these deals. And our research really did bear that out. I mean, you go into some of these rural areas who are, on the back end of a recession, and if you think it's bad in a city, I mean, the rural areas are really where people get hit, and there are a lot of people who've signed these agreements because they are trying to cling to a way of life, a family farm that they've had maybe in their family for 100 years, and they're in danger of losing these farms and this way of life, and so they're signing these agreements and when we made the movie, I mean, the first day we were shooting, some farmers showed up and said, "Hey, is this about fracking? Like, you shouldn't say anything bad about that. We really need this." And so even you go into all of these communities and people are very divided. They feel very strongly for it or very strongly against it.
Well, they have no money, so they're being offered money.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And these aren't hypothetical. These aren't, intellectual exercises. This is really these are their lives. This is, it wouldn't be right for me to sit and judge the decisions they're making from the safety and security of my life in New York City.
But you come in and say, this is garbage, this is crap.
Yeah, I bring the other side of it, which is, I think, when we were writing the script, we wanted to tell a story about American identity in these communities that are going through very real trials and just looking to survive. And so fracking was an incredible backdrop because it's such a high-stakes poker kind of issue, which is there's so much potential to win and there's so much potential to lose. And so depending on how you feel about it, that story is going to adjust with what you decide. So my character comes in and basically pitches that there's so much potentially to lose that if this drilling is not done safely, then the releasing of the gas will, come up through the ground and be extremely poisonous and contaminate water resources and all those things. So I just bring the opposite side of the argument than Matt's character.
So you decide to write this, but in the credits we'll see that Dave Eggers is credited with the story. And who really started this?
I had the idea about 2 years ago, and again, like I said, I wanted.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
You seem so surprised.
Well, 2
My
years
God.
is nothing.
I thought we had something.
Something.
No, in movie years,
Years.
the
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
glacial pace of movie making,
Oh, yeah.
that's really fast.
Yeah, and so I had the idea about 2 years ago. My dad grew up in a small steel mill town outside of Pittsburgh, so I think I subconsciously wrote it for him in that, the way he described his life and upbringing. His dad had 3 jobs, and they didn't necessarily have a whole ton of money. And so I remember being an ignorant 8-year-old being like, so you mean your childhood was awful? And he was like, no, it was fantastic. We had family, friends. We had this faith in each other and the faith that there would be tomorrow would be a better day. And I remember that always stuck with me, the purity of that idea. So what I wanted to do was tell a story about these towns that are going through things, because I think the way the political landscape was heading at the time and did head is that we made a whole lot of noise about the people who you wanted to elect, regardless of the party, rather than the people who are actually going to be affected by the decisions in these people. And I think that we've gotten so far away politically of telling the real story of who's living through these times and living in this country. And so I wanted to tell the story about them. So I brought the story then to Dave Eggers, who at the time I had worked with on Away We Go. And thank you. One person loved it. And that was Dave, actually. And I had done a bunch of things with him for his charity 826, and so I knew him really well, and I just brought it to him to go over story and characters, because a lot of these issues are very close to his heart too. So we hashed out some characters and some story, and with that basic structure, I brought that to Matt, and that's what I pitched him, and that's what he jumped on board, and we started writing.
It just sounds so simple, and it happened, and you said the story, and then you brought it to me.
I
Was
am
he just
screwed
sitting
if I
around
do another
looking for
movie,
another
yeah.
guy to write with?
Well, no, we were talking a lot about
Oh, you
stuff
talked.
we could do together, and we were looking for, because I met John through Emily, through his wife, and so we'd go out to dinner and we'd talk about stuff to do, and this, my original plan was to direct this movie. It was going to be the first thing that I directed, and it was the exact scale of what I was looking for, and that it was a small story, it was about people, not a lot of bells and whistles, and when Steven Spielberg told me about 10 years ago that when you
Get
sorry,
that for
yeah,
you.
I'll get
Sorry.
sorry about that.
Just drop that name.
Thanks, got it. That the first time you direct, you should direct something just simple. He said, just try and see if you can tell a simple story and see if you have an ability to do that in this medium, and don't try to take on too much. So, I talked to Ben Affleck about that when he did Gone Baby Gone, and that was why that movie was that size and scale. Ben really, for his first movie, went like, this is really a manageable size of something, and then he got progressively bigger and better.
Till he was dealing with hostage crises, yes.
Yes,
And just
yes.
bringing it all on to do this. But, well, before I even ask this next question, we have a scene, and the scene contains both of you. So let's look at that, digest it.
There's no real scene that can contain John Krasinski.
Thank you. Finally, someone said it.
Nice work having Frances McDormand in the movie as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I guess. I mean, you decide I can't direct the movie for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, it was just a scheduling reason. I'd been
You were doing guest shots on The Office.
no, I'd been away doing a big science fiction movie, and I'd been away from my kids, and I was going to have to go into pre-production 2 weeks after I got home and leave them again, and I just couldn't do it. So it was hard for me selfishly to give it up, because the script had gotten to a really good place, and I was really excited about it. But I called that old hack Gus Van Sant, and so we like to say that the best thing I did as a producer was fire myself as the director, because we got Gus.
Well, you got Gus, but how do you tell John after the two of you have been working on this and it was your plan to direct it? And what was his reaction, and would he tilt over in that chair?
I just got over it yesterday. Yeah.
It was horrible. No, it was the worst moment of the whole very blissful experience. But I knew that I couldn't do it, and I knew that it was the wrong thing, and me half distracted trying to do this was not going to serve what we had, wanted, which was for it to come out the way it is now. And I said to John, like, I know this is horrible, but because John was like, it was right before the Christmas holiday, so John was like, not only can we not reach any directors right now, we can't even get our agent on the phone, which was true. And
Hollywood takes 17 weeks off for Christmas, in case people don't know.
And Warner Brothers was funding it because for me, really, because I have a deal there, and so when I bowed out, I knew we were going to lose our money, and so it was a tough one, but it, it was for the right creative and, emotional reasons, and it all worked out about 12 hours later.
But at the
thank
time,
God.
it was the great holiday season for all. It just sounds like angst and nervousness, and then what? You can just call Gus and said, "Remember, we did Good Will Hunting together."
Yeah, no, I was. I emailed him actually. The next morning I felt horrible, and we were on our way to Florida. I was on with my wife and kids, and I emailed him from the plane, and he wrote right back. I had explained everything, and he said, "Well, send your script to me. I love your writing." And at that, that Alec Baldwin moment on the plane where they're really telling you to turn your phone off, and I'm like, I'm not playing words with friends. This is important, And she was giving me the "you better turn it off" look. I forwarded the script to him and shut my phone off. And by the time we landed in Miami, Gus had read the script. This is 2 hours later. He'd read the script and said he wanted to do it. So it was really, it couldn't have been better for us.
Don't try this at home, because it just doesn't work. You could email Gus 200 times, and maybe there's not going to be a response. But it happens. You shoot it. Where do you shoot it?
We shot it actually just outside Pittsburgh, and weirdly 10 miles from where my dad grew up. So that was pretty awesome for me personally, having like an existential moment with my dad when he came and visited, and people were like, "What's Krasinski's deal?" And I was like, "This is so beautiful." And it was unbelievable to shoot there. The people were incredibly generous and really, really sweet. But like Matt said, they were not inhibited at all to come and tell you how they felt about what we were doing.
Well, how would both of you react when people haven't seen the movie, as I have? They're looking at the trailer, they're looking at scenes, and they would say, "You two guys are doing a movie about fracking and about the danger of it." And they would say, "Is this just some liberal, lefty Hollywood premise that you're going to speak to us, you're going to be up on a pulpit doing it?" You prepare for that kind of thing?
I I actually remember when we were writing, there was one day, it was about a week or two into writing, and we started to write the stuff about fracking. We had done some other scenes, and we were starting to write the stuff about fracking. And Matt said to me, "Listen, I've been down this road before, and this just became the anti-fracking movie for the people who want to believe that. That just happened. So it's over now, and no matter what we do, that's what people are going to think before they go see the movie, if that's what they want to think, and there's nothing we can do about it." And we never spoke about it again. And I thought that was pretty cool. And, again, our whole story is about the people and what their decision is. It's not, wildly liberal or one-sided in my estimation, but it's about these people and the conflict that they're going through. So for me, I kind of learned that lesson in 7th grade when I tried to pitch a book to my teacher that I hadn't read. And the teacher was like, "Yeah, you're going to maybe not want to do that because you're sounding pretty ignorant." And I said, "Ooh, okay, it sounds good. Okay, I'm going to take that as a really good note for the rest of my life." So if I learned it then and people are still learning it now, that's fine. But it's one of those things that I think we're both happy to discuss anything once people have actually seen the movie and they know what it is they're upset or feeling good about.
That's the key, getting them in to see that, because it's all gray area to me. It's all people saying, I need the money. What am I doing? How do I justify it to myself? So it's people.
Well, that's what we really wanted. That was the real goal of the movie, and in the writing, we really wanted to build these characters who felt relatable and felt like people we know. I mean, there's a character who gets $5,000 and goes and buys a Corvette, and like we all know that guy. And in fact, Lucas Black, who plays him, thought that we had based it on a guy in his town in Alabama, because he's he grew up with a guy who not only bought a Corvette that he couldn't afford, but he tattooed the Corvette logo across his chest.
Wow, that's sincere.
Subsequently lost his car and now just has the tattoo. And Lucas was like,
Which is still pretty cool, I gotta say.
and Lucas was like, y'all know my friend down in Alabama? We were just like, no, man, we made it up, but we you know, we wanted it to stand in more for someone maybe who took out a liar loan or who, you know, but I guess this guy actually did this with a Corvette. We weren't trying to be that literal. But all of the characters feel like, I mean, Frances McDormand's character is making her decisions based entirely on her son and on taking care of her kid. And we all know those people, you know, that's us, you know,
People
and all
with
of
jobs, yeah.
Yeah, people with jobs, exactly.
That they want to hold on to
Exactly.
in that kind of economy.
Right.
All right, before, I want the audience to ask questions, but we want to see another scene that can contain both John Krasinski and Matt Damon. This is it. Well, I admired. I mean, you did the two-handed picture holder really as if it were from life. I
Thank
believed
you.
it. I truly
Thank
did.
you. I think the stage direction was Steve stands there holding 2 pitchers of beer like a jackass. I think that was the actual. That was the jackass shot. Just the guy who's. Thanks. See ya.
I had read somewhere in terms of Gus Van Sant directing that he likes to do a silent take.
Yeah.
What is that?
That came from Terrence Malick. Sean Penn told him, grab that name, I dropped it.
Sorry. There's a couple down here.
There's a
Here's
couple
Ben
down there.
Affleck.
It's right next to
Okay,
Terry
it's all
Malick.
right, it's all right. Piles.
But this is a true story. And these aren't my names to drop. This was Gus's. So Sean told Gus when they did Milk together that Terrence Malick always did a silent version of the scene. He did the scene all the way through with no dialogue, but the same just intentions. And Gus started doing it on Milk, and there are actually 2 scenes in Milk that are silent takes. And we have a scene in here that's partially that's from the silent take, and where it actually, the silence replaced the dialogue. And it works really well. And I asked Gus about it, and what he said was you not only sometimes find that you don't need the words, right, and that it's just very clear, just the way visually how it's unfolding. But there's another added benefit, which is for reaction shots. Oftentimes, on the silent take, the actors really throw it away because they're like, well, this is a silent take. I mean, who gives a shit? You know, I'll just, you know, and they really relax. And Gus said, oftentimes your best reactions are in that silent take because you get the most natural stuff.
So if I asked each of you, if I said, Matt, what's it like working with Krasinski? And Krasinski, what's it like working with Damon? Can you do your silent take on the answer to that question?
That was supposed to be thud.
Was it?
I'll teach you about sound effects later. I could do it, yeah.
You could do it, but you won't you?
Well, I mean, you know.
Maybe you'll think about it a little while
How
we
do you
ask some
do
more
a silent
questions.
version of pure joy? That's it, right there. Yes.
That's perfect. Okay, audience time. So
Just wait to the mic to get to you, please. Right here in the front, in the middle.
Hey, it's a huge honor to be in front of all 3 of you. That was a really nice surprise that you're here, Mr. Travers. This was sort of your guys' project, and then Gus came on it. How was it to have this third creative mind all of a sudden come onto the project? And did he ever have opposing ideas as to what he wanted that you guys had to sort of work with?
For me, it was a lesson in every movie now that I do, I'm gonna literally, because I prepared it as a director, so I learned so much watching the decisions that Gus made that I was gonna also make, and then the ones that I hadn't thought of. Like there's a shot, the second day we shot, there's a scene where the landman, the guy that I play, goes to pitch a farmer, right, who's clearly struggling, played by a great character actor named Tim Guinea. And there's this beautiful little girl, his daughter, who's 6 or 7 years old. And they go into the house to discuss this deal. And Gus gave this little girl a coloring book. And like little kids are great, because if you can give them a task, they totally forget that the camera's there. So he put her in the foreground of the shot. And in the background of the shot, in the other room, you see the doorway and you see the farmer, and then you just see the landman, my character. You just see my hands and a clipboard, right? And the camera just slowly pushes in, and this beautiful little girl prominently featured in the foreground who's diligently coloring away in her coloring book, just oblivious, completely innocent and oblivious to this deal that's going on behind her back in the other room that the former generation is making without her knowledge, that will potentially have huge implications one way or another, for her life. And so that was like, to me, and we wrote it and we were like, man, I never thought of that. That is like, it's a perfect kind of visual expression of that idea, of the whole thing. And that whole idea of stewardship and that whole idea of what we're leaving. But in the middle of it is this performance by Tim Guinea, this phenomenal character actor. And you see, when he's told that he could be a millionaire, you see, what this means to this guy, and it's just so real, and it's just, that's the thing, it's just, these are really complex problems, and there are real people in the middle of them, and that's what we were just trying to do with the movie. There's a vote that takes place at the end of the movie. We never say what the outcome of the vote is, because that's not the issue. What the issue is the issue is how they go about making the decision, and is the decision made in a democratic way, whatever it is, and does the citizenry engage and take responsibility for their decisions.
All the way over here on your right. Way over here.
These are two questions for Matt and John. For Matt, is there a chance that you're going to be in the 5th Jason Bourne movie? And for John, how did you develop the voice of Sir Lancelot in Shrek the Third?
Have I what?
Develop the voice for the character of Sir Lancelot in Shrek the Third.
No, but thank you, because I figure a whole movie should be made about that one character. It's about time someone gave me this respect, Peter.
I see it, and you're responding
Do you
well.
see what I mean?
Yes, I do.
No, I haven't, but I would love to, and I would also love to be in Jason Bourne 5. So both of those things are possible.
I've always, if Paul Greengrass wants to do it, and if we can come up with an idea, we just haven't, we really genuinely have not been able to think of an idea. We'd love to do it. I love that character. I love those movies. But the deal that I always had with him, I never signed up for 3 movies. I signed up for one, and then I signed up for another, and then I signed up for another. And the deal that I always had, and I feel like it's a deal with the audience, is I wouldn't do it unless I genuinely felt like we could make one that was as good as the one that came before it. And I don't want to mess that up. And this last go-round, believe me, they wanted us to do one, but we genuinely couldn't think of a story that we thought was good enough. And they had a deal with the Ludlam estate, and they had to get a movie out in 2012. And so when Tony Gilroy came to them with this idea of how to do it with another guy, that was really basically the only option I think they probably felt that they had, because we didn't have a movie for them. You ever met Jeremy Renner, did you? I've met Jeremy Renner. Oh, okay. Yeah, he's great. He's one of my favorite actors working today. He's fantastic. And he's a really, really great guy, too.
Next question, front row.
I just want to say Good Will Hunting is my favorite movie.
Is that a Bruins hat? What do you got?
No, it's
Brooklyn. Oh, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
All right.
And congratulations on all the success with The Office.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My question is for Matt on, this is the first movie you've done with Gus since Good Will Hunting, and I was just wondering what your professional relationship has been since Good Will Hunting. And I know you said the reason why Gus came in, but was there ever a movie you wanted to work on with Gus?
There were a few. Actually, we did a very small independent movie called Jerry, which I don't even know if Peter saw.
I did.
Thank you. So you're the one.
Me. There were 3 others. No, really. They were in the room with me.
Yeah, and I did. Right, there were 3 others. I also did a cameo in Finding Forrester, which is a movie he did, and then I was going to be in Milk, and I was in Josh Brolin's role. I was really excited to be in Milk. I read that screenplay and thought it was absolutely brilliant, and was really excited to do it. And then Sean, for some reason, pushed the movie. I get that. Sorry.
Not even last names
I know.
anymore.
It's just when you're
Doug came in and was like, oh boy.
So Sean had to push for some reason, and I, which made me unable to do it because I was going away to work with Paul Greengrass. So I lost that part. Yeah, thanks. I had to give up that part. Though, having seen the movie, and Josh was so phenomenal, it's the kind of proof that the right actor gets the part, you know, and I really do believe that. You know, I was attached to play Christian Bale's role in The Fighter at one point, and needless to say, the right actor got the part. And I really do feel that kind of has borne out over my career. All these opportunities that I haven't been able to take advantage of, they've always found the right person. Thanks.
Over here to your right in the back.
John, I was just wondering if you could talk about what you learned about yourself and what you learned about your father during the making of this movie.
Wow, great question.
I am your father.
Oh, jeez. God, I think there's a trademark you just violated somehow. We owe him a lot of money right now. It's really interesting. I talked to my dad a lot about his upbringing, and I've been back to that area of Pittsburgh a whole lot. And to be honest, there was just a really whole new moment that I had with him when he came to visit set. There was something really special about him coming to set 10 miles from his house and saying, you know, this is where I used to pick apples, and I know this farm, and you know, my mom, he and I drove around all day and went to all these old spots. So it was really just more of an incredible father-son moment for me. My dad's my hero, and I respect him more than anybody else. So to me, it was just also a really interesting window for him to see the movie-making side of it because I had written it and was producing it. He got to see a whole bunch of different stuff, and I got to show off this guy and a couple other people. So really, for me, it was just one of those bonding moments where I think I got to learn a lot more about him, and he got to learn a lot more about me.
Next question, all the way in the back behind the camera.
All right, Matt, this is for you. Since the movie came out of Warner, did the budget change, and did you have to take a cut to make this movie, or how did the budget go from there?
Well, we were all going to always have to take a cut to do the movie. That's just the nature of movies like this. These aren't the kind that you really they pay you the full freight for, and we knew that. But no, Warner's was we did a round of financing meetings in L.A. in January of last year, and everybody we met with pretty much came in around $17 to $18 million all in for the movie, and that's with the tax break you'd get shooting either here or Pennsylvania. Which were the main two states we were between, just because of the look of them. But you know, that's really what the movie cost. That's basically what Good Will Hunting costs too, adjusted for inflation. That's about all you need to tell. I mean, that's plenty. I mean, we all had, you know, we had trailers and stuff. I mean, we had craft service, we had good food. You know, it wasn't like we were you know, slumming it or anything. It was plenty of money to make the film.
We have time for 2 more questions. The next one's way over here on the right in the back.
I just wanted to know what you would have as far as advice for up-and-coming actors that are trying to do the darn thing.
When I was working in New York, I was a waiter, but I was also the reader for Warner Brothers casting. And so I was just the guy who you'd read with before you went and got the job. And I learned so much from that job, more than anything else, because A, you got to see people working, and B, you got to hear the feedback all in one room. And the thing I learned from being in there is, I know it sounds really cliche, but it's confidence. That if you know you have it, don't waste your time being too polite. Don't waste your time, I knew he was going to say that. But don't waste your time being too polite. Don't waste your time, thinking about all the things that might be with this audition. Just go in, get out. This is how you do it. And if they love you, they're going to call you back. And if they don't, they don't. There will always be another one.
The other thing that I learned really on Good Will Hunting, it was the first time that I was in that position where I was on the other side. And I'd, been rejected thousands of times. And I always had that kind of actor chip on my shoulder, like, because you have to boost yourself up and your friends up, or else, the business certainly isn't validating you ever, really, until it starts to validate you. But what I learned being on the other side of the table was how desperate they are for somebody to come in and seize the role, because it solves so many problems, And I used to think, well, they wanted me to fail, when in fact the opposite is true. they're rooting for you. They want you to be great, because if you are, then they can give you the role, and that whole headache goes away for them. So know that you know, as John says, to go confidently, make your choices and follow them confidently, and know that those people are really wanting you to be great.
Good luck, by the way.
Thank you.
Break a leg.
Our last question's in the front row.
Hi, Matt Damon. I love your job in Good Will Hunting, and I was an extra in Bond Legacy, the last scenes of the factory. My question was to you, what other role would you like to play besides being that you're an actor and you play most of the roles before? Why? Why would you like to play in other roles, like as in medical patient or anything else besides just action roles and stuff like that?
It really is, it's completely a director's medium. So I make all of the choices based on the directors that I can work with. So I don't think of it in terms of you know, there being one role, you know, a doctor or a lawyer, or you know, it's really more about the director that I'm going to get a chance to work with. I've learned that a mediocre director can take a great script and make it mediocre, and a great director can take a mediocre piece of material and make it great. So much power rests with the director that's the person you really want to hitch your wagon to, and more often than not, they'll make something that you're proud of. What director? If I had to pick a director that I haven't worked with, that's because I could just go back and work with the ones that I've already worked with, and I would be more than satisfied. But the director, is a pretty easy answer for me, would be Ben Affleck.
I want to ask the last question of the two of you about acting, not directors, but you looking at each other, not looking at the promised land for the best scene or the scene that's going to explain things to us, but when you look at John, is there a moment in the movie that with him that sticks with you, and vice versa?
Yeah, his final scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can't talk about it.
Yeah, which I can't talk about. But what I can say is, when I met George Clooney, no, he was really known for being as the guy from ER, you know, 12 years ago, and yet Steven Soderbergh worked with him. Sorry, it worked with him, you know, on Out of Sight, and instantly formed a company with him. And everybody in Hollywood went, "What is Steven Soderbergh doing, forming a company with the guy from ER? Like, that's so weird." But the reality was, Steven knew that the perception of George then was not the perception people would have a dozen years later, that he was far more dynamic, that the scope and the breadth of his talent was far greater than anybody even understood. He was famous for one thing, but he was going to be doing a lot more than that. And that's exactly how I feel about John. Like, he's great on the show. He's perfect on that show. He's had 9 years to hone a performance that started out great and only got better. But the scope of it and breadth of his talent is so much greater that I sat with him, hung out with him, and instantly said, "Can we write something together? Can we do something together? I really want to make a movie with you." And I mark my words, in a dozen years, the way people think about him will be very different than it is now.
Well, now.
Thank you.
Now you can't say all those nasty things you were going to say about
Can't say
you
anything.
Can't. Really. It's
Matt,
just
you're really good. I mean, where do I go with that? Do you really want me to?
No, I won't, because I could see that. So instead, we're just all going to thank you. Matt, John, thank you for being
Thank you so much, guys.
everyone.
Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Thank you.